Again, Matt O'Hara from the Illinois DNR. I am the former Asian carp program manager. Now I moved over onto the Mississippi River where there's Asian carp, so I'm never going to get away from it. But I had the pleasure of working with the Asian carp program since 2010. That's when I first met our commercial fisherman, Ronnie Brown. So in late 2009, 2010, Illinois initiated a contracted commercial fishing program. Since that time, as Kevin said earlier in our talk, we've harvested nearly 8 million pounds of fish with commercial fishermen like Ronnie. We have 9 currently. We were up to 10. We're at 9 at our level right now. So it's about 1.3 million pounds a year, very successful, in an area where it's moderate populations. There's not real big populations. And in some of the areas we go up into the canals, there is either very few fish or no fish, we think. So with that, Ronnie Brown, as our contracted fisherman, is the only person who's caught 2 fish above the electric barrier. In 2010, he caught a bighead carp nearly on the very first day of the program. He caught that in the Calumet area, Lake Calumet. Exactly 7 years later, Ronnie Brown caught a silver carp within 5 miles of that area in a little harbor, a little bay, which initiated. That was during an intensive monitoring event we had in the canals, which we haven't caught fish. Ronnie caught the one in 2017. That initiated a rapid response, and we didn't catch a fish during that rapid response, or haven't since during other events in there. So he's got that distinguished, you know, where he's caught the only 2 fish above the barrier. You know, yes, we we go.
I hope they do.
Well, with that, Ronnie has been a great ambassador for our contracted commercial fishing program over the years. You know, we get a lot of TV events, a lot of people coming in for press and everything. Ronnie, we've always asked Ronnie, hey, will you be the guy that we can tie a mic to, and everybody, you know, if they've got questions. So he's been a great ambassador for the program over the years, and just an invaluable fisherman with the absolute knowledge and experience that this man has. It's incredible. So as part of this, as Ronnie's going through some of these gears, please be very interactive. Pick his brain. He loves that. He designs nets. He builds them himself. He loves hearing new ideas. He loves sharing ideas about net building. He's been doing it for nearly all his life, and he'll talk about that. You know, Ronnie's there's very few what we could consider full-time commercial fishermen left in Illinois. We're down to probably less than 50, and there's no recruitment going on. There's no young guys getting into this game. You know, Ronnie's withstanded the years of commercial fishermen, and he showed me a receipt from, what was it, 1976, and the prices he was getting for his fish are exactly the same as they are in 2019, maybe even a little less. So I mean, he'll show you. It's incredible. That's why there's no one getting into this, you know. It's just the fish prices it's remained static for over 50 years.
In 1976, I bought a new 4-wheel drive truck, a boat, a motor, and nets. Everything you really needed to have. I think I probably spent $14,000 at the most. You can't buy an outboard motor now for $14,000.
Yeah,
and the price of the fish is still the same.
It's you know, drastically changed. The price of the equipment, the nets. You know, that's why these guys are building their own nets, you know, because he can make it to his specifications for the you know, where he wants the fish form and the size of fish and going on. So I'm going to turn it over to Ronnie. Like I said, he, you know, throughout the day, please pick his brain. You know, he's always thinking about different designs. He's going to go through some nets that he's built for us and some experimental nets that he's just thought on about on his own, and he's built and we've tried out, and I know he's worked a lot with the USGS and Robin with some of his net designs and ideas. So like I said, invaluable knowledge here. Please use it as much as you want. So thank you guys, and here's Ronnie Brown.
Well, it's good to see everybody here today. I told a couple people yesterday when I showed up, it's been 50 years since I've been to Kentucky. The last time I was here was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky for basic training. So, but that was a great experience, and the Asian carp has been a great experience for me. I'll go over a little bit of how I got started in that there. Sometimes I ramble on, so I'm going to read what I have written down here so I don't get carried away. I started fishing at an early age at Spring Lake, Savannah, Illinois, Pool 13, Mississippi River, where my father ran a fishing camping resort. My father teamed up with a commercial fisherman, Charles Jacobs, to remove rough fish from Spring Lake. This experience created my hunger to be a commercial fisherman. I finished schooling and got into commercial fishing for a living. I want to talk a little bit about my mentor because that's probably the biggest part of my life. He spent a lot of time with me, and he was very good. And everything I do today is by instinct, and I think of him a lot, so he's very special. Okay, I was lucky enough to team up with Charles Jacobs, who took me under his wing and shared his lifetime of commercial fishing knowledge with me. He fished for 60 years, and his father was a commercial fisherman before him. That type of apprenticeship and teaching is priceless. You can't go to school for it. You can't buy it. You know, it was really special for me the way he taught me. That type of apprenticeship and teaching is priceless, and I am very grateful for what he does. I think about it all the time. Like when you go to places, you just look at the river, you just have something in your head starts turning because you've heard things that he said and his dad, you know, all the knowledge that they gained over the years. And just a little more about him. I've always tried to improve on the equipment that he had when we fished together, but I find myself going back to the same patterns he had. I always want to make it a little better. Geez, I don't know how many times I go back to about the same thing. They had fished for 100 years and designed what worked for them. The biggest changes in equipment aren't the net designs, but the material that the nets are made of. Went from cotton to nylon, we got poly, got all different kinds of nice stuff today that's just so more user-friendly than what we had years ago. You got aluminum boats, we used to have wooden boats. You had wood hoops, went to spring steel, fiberglass. Just things have gotten better. It's a lot easier to use, maintain. With the old guy, he did a lot of work for the DNR when I fished with him, getting involved. So I got me involved with DNR people. I got to meet a lot of them over the years. I've done many fish surveys with the DNR. I got a call from Rob Mayer in 2009, 2010 to go to Chicago to look for Asian carp. I never dreamed in my lifetime I'd be going to Chicago to chase a carp. So that was kind of crazy, but I'm glad I did. Everything else is history and brings me to where I am today with this project. So it's a great project. It's been good to be a part of it. And my mentor is very special to me. I've always tried to improve, but I don't know how many times. Some of the basics that I just keep going back to. They did for 100 years. It's hard to change some of that. Any questions?
Ronnie, I know specifically we asked you to bring some of the gill nets and trammel nets. Do you mind just kind of walking through?
Sure.
We got different materials and why do you use different materials, and that might be helpful.
There's 9 crews in there, which is a good thing. Everybody has different opinions. We all want to use different stuff, try different things, so it's good. If you just have one idea going, everybody sticks by it, it's not good. It's good that everybody has their own opinion, want to try something different. This is green. I think some of it's got, what is it, Daima, or they got all kinds of different webbing anymore. Green. This is red. Actually tried red 30 years ago. It was okay. I don't know, just went back to the other. This is a regular mono. It has 2 float lines. want them to keep the fish from jumping over. You can pull one way or the other. And I got this net from a guy who just bought some. It's black. The webbing is black. We all use different size meshes. 9 boats, if there's 6 of us there, we all got a little bit. We all know the size of the fish, but we all like different meshes. I'm a little bit of a bigger mesh guy because I don't want to catch all the bycatch. Catch so many buffalo and carp and that. And some of the guys that they don't mind, so they'll catch smaller fish, but they're going to have a lot more bycatch with it. A lot of improvements. You can see they got the float line, which is so much easier to use anymore. Lead line. Things are a lot easier to use now.
The old ones, I think some of the people may not catch up that it used to be we always had floats, and those floats would hang up in the net, you know.
Yeah, right here.
Like, yeah.
All I had like this here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a lead line.
And
The
now
leads were sticking out. I got in the truck, I got an old cotton gill net. You don't see many of them around.
No.
It came from an Indian reservation up in Minnesota. It's got a 57 tag on it.
Yeah.
I'll bring it out here and people can look at it. But it's just so fragile, the webbing in that.
I was working with a commercial fisherman 2 weeks ago in Hungary, and he still had cotton.
Well, they still have cotton there, huh?
Yeah, oh my God! I said, this we got to get you guys.
I started when nylon come out. I'm grateful for that because, man, when you got done with the cotton stuff, you had to hang it up, dry it. If you left it wet, it wasn't any good.
Ronnie, can you talk a bit about the amount of webbing and the tie down and all that stuff, and how much webbing per foot kind of stuff that you guys are doing these days, and
There's where we all have difference of opinion.
Right.
9 crews, which is good.
Right.
A lot of guys like a lot of webbing, which is good because if you get on a hanger, you can tear a hole in it, you're still going to catch fish. But sometimes I think you can get too much webbing, and it's like a wall. They don't want to take it. So, and then the number of meshes this way, and some guys will have a 10-foot net with 20 foot of webbing in it for height, you know. And for the mesh, I try to go mix it up a little bit. I don't want it too heavy, but I want it heavy enough where I can still tear it a little bit and still do it. So it's whatever, it's your preference. So trial and error. There's a lot of trial and a lot of error in this.
Yeah, I think it gets. I want to hear your opinion on this. I think it gets quite a bit stickier. I mean, a lot of us biologists, when we buy a net, just stock net, right? You know, and it's we've got 100 yards of net strung on 100 yards of rope. You know.
Yeah, it's the same length.
Yeah.
There's no web in between.
This guy's laughing.
You don't.
Yeah. And so
Well, how do you-
that's why I want to bring this up. And I
Hey,
wanted to
that's
hear
how
you-
they make money.
Yeah, that's
They're
right.
glad to see you.
Exactly, and that's why I wanted to hear you say something about that, and you see the response. You know,
Yeah.
It's going to take. You can't really go out and effectively fish these fish with the kind of nets we buy off the shelf out of Miller Net or any place else. I mean,
They make the net basic.
right.
So anything you want over and above, you're
Right.
going to pay a little extra.
So in your fisheries management class, they don't teach you this, and so Ronnie's a good. When you talk about having your net built, or you got to talk to somebody like this, who's going to give you a better idea of how much net you're going to want to put on there, and how much deep you're going to set it, and tie down, and whether it's going to be trammel or whether it's going to be whatever, because that kind of stuff is going to make a big difference in the amount of fish you catch.
And every time of the year is different too for the type of net you want. Cold weather, you can use a lot lighter web. The fish aren't as active. As the weather warms up and they can break through that web, you have to go from number 6 to number 8 or number 10 for mono, so they don't break through it. But in the wintertime, sometimes it helps to have that lighter web. They'll take the net better, and they'll also stay in it too. So, but I think they go by stretch yards or whatever. For 100 yards of net, so many stretch yards. So many ties per mesh, and a lot of it seems like the ties are getting further apart all the time. Maybe need to shorten up on the ties a little bit, a little more web.
More fragile.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Brown,
Yeah.
you mentioned mesh sizes. What is your preferred mesh size
For what fish? And
for fishing for silver carp?
silver carp, it's the one I built for the state right over there. It's 3.5 square to 2.5. I've tried a lot of the other ones. Bycatch, 4-inch in the front. It seems like you get a lot of them gilled there. The 3.5, they still work their way back, and 2.5 will hold some of the smaller silvers, and you won't catch as many catfish in that. Yeah, you look at that. That's the one. That's the fiberglass one. That's the ones that I built for the DNR. So you take a look at the throats on that. And the old timer that I started out with, he had square throats. Some of them front and back. I don't care for the double square throat because the fish are hard to dump out. The ties are on the hoop, so when you go to dump them fish out, it's hard. You got to take them out through the tail most of the time. The finger throat, if you have 50, 75 pounds, you can just dump them right out. It's just a lot easier. So the finger throats take a little longer to go, and the square throat, I went from square to round. I have 5 ties instead of 4 now.
I was saying, Jimmy brings up a good point. I mean, in 2010 we were fishing one mesh, and last week we were fishing a much different mesh. You know, because bigheads were there, we were fishing what, 5 and 6 inch.
Yeah. It changes all the time, so you have to have a variety. There's no one net that's going to solve your problem. You have to have different types of nets for different times of the year. When you get muddy water and the water's high, boy, I mean, you can catch a lot of fish, and your net might want to be built a little bit different, you know, for when you're catching a lot of them. So,
Yeah, when we first started in 2010, probably the average size fish that we were getting when Ronnie started in the pits was probably what, 30 to 40 pounds.
Oh, huge fish.
And
yeah.
we've completely wiped those fish out. There's only very few of those fish left. And now we're down to those 5 to 7 pound silver carp. So they've evolved through the years. I mean, if you look at our catch rates and everything, they can completely change a population of fish with the nets are catching. So yeah, I mean, like you said, you have to, you can't just go with one tool. You have to go with several tools.
You have to have a bunch of it.
You know, trying to figure out exactly what you want, you know. Go ahead, Ron.
And the last time we did the unified there in the pits there, I don't think that we have the population there anymore, and I noticed when you're driving the fish, the first couple times there's fish all over, but now the fish are all in just balls, different places, you know. And when you're trying to drive them a long distance, when you break that ball up, they go everywhere. And so it's tough for us to keep pushing them a mile down to the same. So it's funny how they all balled up, and you can go by them, you won't see a fish, and you go back another 2 times, and then they just explode, they take off. So they're just waiting. They're smart. They've seen it before, but I've noticed that the fish are balling up, and they're harder to move than what they used to be. And I think that's because there's not as many of them. So.
Yeah, Ronnie's, where's it at? I was going to look for your preferred noise maker. Where did you put it?
Plunger?
Yeah. I thought I had it sitting here.
One of those guys took it.
Ronnie's, he's
just like a bathroom plunger.
Yep.
I've used that forever. So.
He was the first one I've seen ever use the plunger method. You know, he's one of the fishermen that takes the more subtle approach in moving fish. He doesn't want to bust up the ball. Go ahead, Ron. You know, I mean, you've talked to me about it.
I just like a little more gentle. They like to bang on the boat. That's hard on your ears. I think it just spreads the fish way out. And sometimes when fish are scared, they're not going to move. They're going to just stay right there. You think you could still drive them, but oh, they're pretty sharp, the fish. It'd be fun to have a camera down there to see how they're looking around, you know.
You've always told me they bury their heads, don't they?
They can. Sometimes shallow water, they just go right down. And a lot of times you'll watch them, you're driving them, they'll go right up on the bank around the net. It's funny how they jump up on the bank to get on the other side. So.
Ronnie, can you talk to us about gill net deployment? So you're going to go, we're not doing a unified method, right? But like you're going to go up and go catch a bunch of fish out of the Illinois River someplace. Can you talk to us about kind of places you'd be setting the net, and then and how you're driving the fish, or are you setting the net in a straight line? Are you doing a J set? You know, I mean, maybe the advantages and disadvantages, those different kind of. Are you doing a Z?
Well, when we first went there years ago, there was just a lot of fish. So you could just set the net across and you could you catch a lot of fish. You know, as the fish population dwindles, your approach is a lot different. You know, when we go in places, I always look for like the Rookery. It's a place off the river. Material services. These fish going up the river, I don't. It's just like a magnet for them. That's where they want to go. And the marinas, Sheehan. But when I'm looking for a place, you try to look. A lot of times now when they're down, you can see the ball. You can see that they got that mud going around them. And boy, the closer you can get to them without spook them, the better off you are. If you stay 50, 75 yards from that ball, and you get done, that ball's still going to be there, and you're going to pick up 2 or 3 fish. So the closer you can get to them, and then you just keep circling. It's amazing. They'll go up to that net and they'll look at it, and you just got to keep tightening it up.
So you're when you set the net on the Illinois River, you're setting in a circle around the fish, and then you're
I try to get around them. Yeah, whether it's along the bank, a cove, out in the middle of the river. If you get a ball, you got to get all the way around them because they're.
Yeah.
By the time you get the net off, you don't get around the thing. They're adios.
Now that kind of fishing requires you got to learn how to read the water, and tell where that school of fish is. And if you could look out the windows of our, I don't know if you staying overnight here.
Yeah, tonight.
Yeah, you look out there, and the last 2 mornings there's been a ball of silver carp hanging out right by the marina, and you can see it from our room.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many people have seen that, but if you look if they're in the same place, and it takes an eye, and most of the people here, I tell you what, there probably aren't more than 5 people in this group that could pick out that school of carp at that distance. So you got to learn, if you're going to go out and try to catch them that kind of way, where you're spotting the school, you got to learn how to see that fish, because it's not something that's easy to pick up. And you got to see that funny water, and that's going to tell you where the fish are.
And sometimes those fish will be out there a quarter of a mile. You'll be able to see them up ahead. You'll see just the closer you get, the more nervous they get.
Right.
You can see the more action, and then if you don't get around that ball,
right,
they're bye-bye.
And if you're, one of the things too, if you're out fishing and you're blazing down the river, and you'll see those fish over there as you get close, that they get pretty scared, and then as you blaze on by, they say, okay, that wasn't anything. So then you mark that and go back tomorrow, and I'm gonna hit that spot.
Yeah, or you can even come back later in the day once they settle down.
Yeah.
A lot of the fishermen, when I started out, the old guy, we always put a rug on the deck. Boy, if anything made a noise in the boat with that net going out, boy, he had a fit. And the guys today, they run the motor, they rev it, they throw the net out. It's just different. I like the quiet approach a little better. So.
The other approach, Dwayne, too, is that I've seen over the last couple of years, not only do they, Ronnie or whoever surrounds the ball, but once they get that blocked off, they go inside it. Inside it now.
Just keep putting more net.
And keep putting more net in, because the fish, actually, what I've seen with Ron and others, they'll just lay against the net. They'll that outside net, and they'll just lay right against it. They won't put their nose into it. They'll lay against it. And when they go inside, they actually can, weave another net through there within that net. And that's when they start trying to move them. That's when everything goes haywire, and they can't figure that out. And that's when they start sticking their heads in. That's one of the biggest, I guess, evolutions I've seen within the last few years with our guys, because that ball is getting smarter, and they know, hey, we can go over here and lay, and we'll be okay. And if the pressure comes, where the boat or whatever, we'll just move over here, But if you don't give them that option and you put that net inside there, they have nowhere to go. There's just nowhere to go but to another net.
And if you're fishing, that's a bit different type of situation. If you're fishing the Illinois River, if you're on the Missouri, your fish are either going to be in tributaries where commercial guys can't fish, but you guys can, or you're going to be fishing behind the wing dikes, and you got these much smaller areas you can set. So in that case, you're going to want to go in there, block them off, just get a net right across that opening so they can't get out. Then you got to go in and lay your net back and forth inside of that hole.
Yeah.
And you just get them stirred up, and you're going to load up the net. But if you go in and try to just lay that net inside the hole, by the time you get 20 yards of net set, those fish are gone. You got to go in there armed for bear. If you pull up to a wing dike and you go Okay, I think I've got an anchor over here, and I've got my net. Pull out the net out of the box, and it's gone. They're already gone. You've got to come in there with your, you got a guy on the bow of the boat with an anchor and saying his hand. He heaves that up on the jetty there on the wing dike, and you're backing down and getting these fish in there before they have a chance to get out. And as you're backing up, if you know what you're looking for, you'll see them zooming out behind you. If you've got a wing dike that's got a bunch of fish, and so you've got to think about it's a wholly different idea than what you guys are mostly doing when you're going to go out and do crappie surveys, right? You put out the net and the fish are going to blunder into it. That is not the way it works with these fish.
It was funny, a couple of years ago, I had the net out and I was driving the fish down. There's a lot of fish there. They weren't taking the net. And then another boat had some problems, so I went out just on the outside of my net there. And I'm helping him. And a few minutes later, I look back, and them fish are going to the other end. They're just going, jumping out of the water, and they went right to the other end, and then they took the net at the other end. Maybe they thought they was going to get out, but it was fun to watch them. They were going crazy like they were escaping, but we had them cut them off.
Yeah, especially if they have a way they know they've got the escape routes figured out.
Oh, they do.
Yep. And so if you got to figure out where those escape routes are, block them off first, then go catch the fish. Otherwise, you'll see them headed for it. And my scouts, when we do this thing, we go out and catch a bunch of these fish, just jump in that. We grab them out of the air. We all wear football helmets and we catch them out of the air. And we'll put a bunch of scouts standing there in the water at the escape route, and then we put a boat behind them, and the scouts and the fish they see all his legs, and they go airborne, and the kids are like watch them go over their head, and they land in the boat behind them. But you see that wave of fish headed towards those boys, and they're like, okay, get ready, because they're going to come.
If you don't mind, Ronnie's an expert hoop netter. I think maybe your passion is hoop netting. That's probably fishing for catfish and stuff over the years. And like every good biologist, when we started this program, we got the Memphis net and twine book off the shelf and ordered up a bunch of hoop nets, because we knew hoop nets were going to help us certain times of the year. And we still fish every time, but those first couple of years we didn't catch much. The nets were just not carp nets.
Different design.
So we got Ronnie, and first thing he did, he just cut everything off and rebuilt. So what makes a good hoop net, and what do you need to look for?
I think it's the size of the throats and the way they funnel down. The one thing I did learn, you always think bigger fish, bigger throats, you can make the throats too big. They'll swim in, they'll swim right back out. So there's got to be a little happy medium there. I've had the best luck with the one that's over there. It's a 6-foot fiberglass. You can look at the throats and that. The old timers I started out, I always like an apron on a net. The younger fishermen, they don't want the expensive putting an apron on a hoop net, so that they went to like 6 hoops without apron. I went to 6 hoops with an apron, so I just one less hoop in the backward to hold the fish. So I thought that was a little more user friendly. So, but it's all trial and error. And I would say every river, every lake's a little bit different. The net you use here might be a little bit different than I use at home. Depends on the amount of current you have, the color of the water. There's just so many different things, varieties.
And that gets back to we are always about standardization, because we want to be able to standardize gears across different areas, and that's a problem for us. But the fact of the matter is that by standardizing your gear, you're not really standardizing your fishing, and because you may not be fishing the right gear for that particular spot, and so there's some trade-offs with gear standardization.
When I first started doing surveys for the DNR, I went at different times. I thought, then I tell them, you want to catch some fish? we can't keep doing it this way. We got to change it up a little bit, But I understand the study part of it too. You want something that you can document, but that's hard too, because the river changes all the time. Where it was 6 foot here last year, it might be 2 foot this year. So it all changes where you're fishing at. So
river biology is so hard.
Mm-hmm. Another thing the old guy I'll tell about is in his lifetime, he only seen buffalo spawning on top one time. He was in the pool 13, and he said he went up there usually they're in the backwaters, shallow water, but he said the river was just full of buffalo up on top. You could see them, the females and the males running around. And I was lucky enough, I fished Rock River, I got to see it twice. if the water was at flood stage, and as far as you could see, them buffalo were up on top. Water was muddy going 100 miles an hour, but they were spawning right on top. So last year I made a floating hoop net. So where that goes, I don't know.
So tell us about, where would you set some of these different type of hoop nets? What kind of habitat they'd be in, how fast the water, what time of year? I mean, why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Usually, the Asian carp, what's temperature they spawn at?
In
58,
centigrade,
60 or?
centigrade between 20 and between 20 and 28 is really the peak spawning.
Okay.
So that's centigrade. Somebody else can help me out with figuring that. Yeah, warm though, June.
Okay. Yeah, usually
June,
buffalo
July.
spawn 58 to 60 degrees.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's a good time to fish for them because you get a female there, they're all going to go in. Another good time is when you get high water, it's muddy. The fish seem to go towards the banks a little bit to get out of the current, and they can't see the net as well. Muddy water, that's a good time to go then too. In the summertime when there's no current, water's clear, very difficult.
Do you ever throw a female carp in your net to begin with, or you just hope they get in there?
No buffalo, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get one that's in good shape, you leave it in, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helps.
So the obvious question is, bigger always better?
Not always. I bought that and then I didn't use it for a while. I used it for a while and then I quit using it. My wife asked me, how come you're not using that net out there? I can't even drag it around the yard, I didn't want to tell her the real reason, so. Yeah, well, I tell you, the hoops probably weigh, 75 pounds on that or more. The fiberglass hoops, I'd sure hate to buy those today, what it would cost.
When you get, a whole bunch of big heads in a net like that, getting it in your boat
Tough.
is tough.
You almost have to take it to bank.
Right.
If you get 1,000 pounds in there, open up the tail and then just start taking
Right.
them out.
You're gonna tip your boat over trying to get it in the boat.
You need a barge when if you have a bunch of them, you need a barge to run them on. Yeah. But I had to have one.
Yeah. Well, some of us, we might have the money to put in a barge in put a boom and lift these nets with a boom rather than trying to do it the hard way, which is just rolling them onto the deck and one hoop at a time.
I've always thought that barge, and you could fish a few of them then too.
Right. We could run the e-baloo. I could put a boom on the e-baloo and to lift that sucker up and drop it on the boat.
Definitely.
It would
Be easy then. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about leads or on hoop nets, Ronnie? What's your preference on that, and how would you fish a leaded net?
I know there's a lot of lead out there. I prefer wings myself.
Okay.
The lead, they could go off to the side. You got wings out, they're still going to go to the net. And you can have it down, you can have the lead down the middle. It just makes it that more cumbersome to raise. You got three things to pick up rather than your wings or that.
Right.
And as you'll see, I used to have all nylon wings and lead, and I've tried to go to mono. It should be a little heavier than what I got there, but it gains no weight. It's so much easier to use, This here's pretty light. I did have a few fish gill in it. I don't want that. So I'd have to go maybe a little smaller mesh and a little heavier on the mono. But it's amazing. That just doesn't weigh anything, It's so much easier to handle.
Even in current?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I learned that.
Oh, the mono is just, a lot better, yeah. Yeah, you get that heavy nylon compared to that. At least it'd be my preference.
Do you set the hoop nets in backwater, or you just always use them in the channel borders?
If I'm fishing for channel cat, well, even buffalo, it seems like you need a little current.
What about carp? Asian carp.
Asian carp, you still need a little bit of a current. If you put it where there's no current, they go up, look to it.
Yeah.
Unless you get a female in it, they just go up and look at that net.
Female would help?
Yeah, if you had a female, it's ready to spawn, put it back in that net. Yeah, definitely, yep. Big difference, yeah. I've had nets where I put a female in there, you go back next day, be full.
And you need a little current too.
Yeah, I prefer a little current. If you don't have any current, you almost need wings.
So if we could make a female like that,
Yeah.
which I think my lap can do, they should try it.
Yeah,
We can do that.
yeah, I always prefer current. The fish is always going up into the current. That's just their tendency.
Yeah.
If there's no current, they go any place they want to. They're looking all the time. And If it doesn't look
Right.
good, they're not going to go in it. So
course.
yeah. So without current, if you could put a female in there, make a huge difference. Yeah.
How about food? Have you tried any kind of food?
I got some bait. I just USGS that we worked with them. They had a guy that made some bait, and that got my motor going. I was glad to see those guys do that. You know, are they still doing it?
Yeah.
Good. I mean, you're not going to get it the first time, and I'm not either. But it's fun to try. You know, it's we all have different looks at it, how we want to do it. So I hope they keep doing it. And I got a couple bags over there. I'm not done with it yet, but it's stuff that I've made. Added stuff to it, and experimented with it. So I've read different things on carp bait and that there. They use pineapple, and you had pineapple there. I'm thinking, them Asian carp ain't been to Hawaii yet. So I mean, how the heck they liking pineapple?
I don't know. They use it for common carp, but there's a reason
Yeah,
we
that's
have
it.
it.
I've read a lot of things.
Yeah, it's very
yeah.
popular in the
Yeah.
in Europe for common carp,
Yeah.
so the stuff's available. That's why it's that's why it gets used by people doing research so that you can buy it off the shelf, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think they have pineapples much in Germany and Britain either. So.
Those fish are a little more picky over there. But it's fun. I'm experimenting with it, and maybe I'll never get it, but at least I tried. So, and I hope those people keep trying. So,
You always run two throat, never three throat.
there's a net that I have that's got 3 threads. It's in the back of the truck yet.
What do you think about that?
If for no current, it's good. Fish has a little bit more of a problem getting out. Yeah, I'd use 3 throats for backwater and stuff like that. Yeah, it's just a lot longer net, but you can actually get different sizes. You could start out with 3.5, go to 2.5 to 2. To start out with. I'm just not fond of that real small mesh because of all the bycatch.
Right, you get the fish head stuck in there.
Yeah. Just too much bycatch. I mean, if you want to catch Asian carp, you got to have the size. And how you catch them little ones, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to shock them or seine them, or I got a small mesh seine over there. I think a lot of times when we seine, we use way too much. Better off to take a short area and get it in and see what you have. Because the longer you drive it, the more things that can go wrong.
For little fish, I'd say if you got to find skinny water if you want to be effective. And the only time I see these little fish in deep water is when there was little water. There's no longer water there, where the river
Okay.
comes down and they come out. But most of the time, if you want to find little fish, you want to be in water where your boat doesn't go.
Okay.
Right. So if you're in
A
a boat,
foot.
you're generally in the wrong place.
Yeah.
But these guys are always in boats, so that's why they don't know where the little fish are.
Yeah, so if you could find a place where you could clean, you just can't expect to take a seine, go any place you want. You got to go to a place, clean it out, and then go there once in a while. It's clean, you know what? You just give it a quick swipe. And
Right.
either there or they're not there. So
When there's no shallow water stuff available and they get washed out into these deeper waters, things like popia and electrofishing, they work really good on
Sure.
little fish.
Ronnie, I got 2 other things.
Okay.
One is that beeping going on over there, and then 2, tell us about the big seine and the lid that you put on there.
okay, this been a few years ago. I bought some traps to keep the moles out of the yard. Them things you put down the ground, So I'm thinking I could put that on a float and maybe I could deter fish to a certain point. And the batteries will last like 6 months. You can look at it over there, and you could get different sounds maybe, and it vibrates also. It it's not just the sound; it vibrates. So I got some of them. Another goofy idea, I'm always thinking out of the box.
I like that.
Yeah,
We
so
have a couple
you can.
snags in those lakes we go to, and you've been throwing those in the snags, I think, to see if we can kind of keep the fish from getting up in there where we can't get a net.
Or if you got a place where fish going in, maybe you could guide them to one side or the other to get them where you want, where it's a little easier to catch. Keep them out of the brush piles and stuff
Right.
like that. But you can look at it over there. One of them late night thoughts,
Yeah. Is there anything
Oh,
you
then
think
the-
that repels carp from entering things? I mean, if you're talking about things that attract, is there anything that repels, like certain netting materials or, I don't know.
Different smells
sounds?
or
yeah,
different-
something like that, or sounds a net might make. that-
Oh, I
something that's
haven't
doing
I
it.
haven't worked with any of that.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah, nets will work. Seine will
Yeah.
work if you want to keep them out. Only problem is when you leave seine there for a long time, muskrats, beaver,
Yeah.
they get holes in it. And for Asian carp, they jump over the top back and forth now and then. So that's why the one seine I built up there, it's got an apron on it. There's a bulb on it. You pull the seine, and where it holds it up in the air, they'll go up, they'll hit the seine, they'll jump up, but the net's there. They can't jump over it. That one's probably pretty close to 10 foot. I made another one where the apron's a little shorter, like 6 foot and a little smaller mesh. I always start out with stuff that I got laying around. Because it's trial and error, and a lot of it's air, so you spend a lot of money doing it for nothing, you know. So you can look at it up there. But the other one I made, it's about 6 foot, and I probably went to, I think it was 1 3/4 mesh square. So, but they'll go up, they'll hit, you can see them pop up.
Oh,
One
really?
of his people took some filming of it when we did that. Brennan did it. You can see the fish jumping up and then going back
You ever
down.
tried lights?
Lights? No. A lot of guys fish at night. I thought the guy in the sky would have put headlights on me if he wanted me to fish at night. I've done it a few times. I don't know.
No, that's all right. So if you get carp, you get other species with them, or are they usually just carp?
No, you catch other stuff. Yeah,
do?
yeah. Catfish, buffalo,
Okay.
sheephead.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a variety. You catch a game fish now and then, not very often, but.
And then somebody, I'm sorry for asking these questions. Somebody
That's fine,
asked
no.
me, like, we know when fish get injured, they often release things that can be repellent.
Okay.
Do you see any evidence of
I-
that? Do you have
I-
a
I
damaged
haven't,
fish in
no.
the net? Does it stop it from
No,
trapping? Or
I've
never seen that.
caught damaged fish in the net before.
No, okay.
A lot of times the damaged fish will go in the net because he can get out of the current. He's hurt, so he's more apt to maybe go in the net than a regular fish.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, Ron. I guess the question I'd like to ask, I mean, you know, Ronnie Brown comes to Lake Barkley, or a lake you've never fished before. You get on that water. What do you start looking for right away if you want to start catching Asian carp? What are the cues to say, hey, I think this is going to be the area, or you know, can you give us any insight on some cues you might go right away and say, yep, I think this is a ball of fish, or I think this is a great place to start and set a net or whatever?
Probably the first day I came here, I'd take a ride. I'd just go look. I'd see what the current's like, the backwaters, the structures, the depth of the water, and then I'd think it over a little bit, and then the next day I would go out and probably, they like coves. Depends on the time of the year. The warmer it gets, they seem to spread out. They're not in the backwaters like they are when it gets cold. But and there's another thing. That old guy that taught me, it's something that's up here that just, it's hard to explain it.
Just start scouting
Yeah,
first.
yeah, you start. Yep.
And
And look everything over.
Yeah, see-
what you see, that you know that the fish like brush piles, they like little coves. Depends on the current.
Size 10.
Nah,
Have you been able to?
that's taking advantage of the fish. You can't. That's like hunting. You shouldn't have cameras. You know, if you're a hunter, who needs a camera? You know, but they do work. Oh, they do work. Yeah, yeah. I should think about. I've looked at them and the way they're changing all the time. Boy, in another 6 months they might have something
You
that's
can
just.
tell 100% that is. Asian.
I've seen some of them. I don't think you can really tell for sure. Yeah, yeah. It's a
individual
fish.
fish,
It's a fish. You know
Right.
that. Yeah.
Right, not individual fish, but you got a ball of fish and you know, in a place where there's a lot of carp, you know, you know they're carp. I mean, most of them, there might be a few other buffalo mixed in or. you
Yeah,
know,
that's
but-
the area
but-
that they like, and that's the fish that's prevalent there.
Right, yeah,
in that
you're
area.
gonna find
So,
them. They really help, especially if you're not the guy who can look out across the lake.
we do have, you know, out of the 9 guys, we have a couple.
There's a couple of them.
That you know, exclusively they're looking at that screen, you know, and that's what they're cueing on, you know. Others go by the way the water looks, the ripples, other things, but there are a few that yes, absolutely take advantage of the technology right away, you know. I mean,
I'd say they'd work a lot better in deeper water, where
yeah.
you can see a little better. You get in real shallow water, it's pretty much hard to see. So the deeper the water, or bigger the water, probably it'd be a big help then. So.
and that's primarily what we fish. I mean, it's pretty shallow water. You know, it's here a little different. You know, if we've got deep water, if we have 2 feet of water, 3 feet of water, that's deep to us.
Yeah.
Really is in
Sometimes, yep.
our backwater situations. So yeah, to have an area which we do a couple areas like the pits that average 7 to 8, 10 foot of water. You know, so it's a little different strategy there.
Since we've got deep water here, is there any? I'm assuming you guys are always fishing the whole water column with the gill nets, hobbled in some way. But if the water's too deep, is it even worth setting that gill net? You know, if we think of that pod of fish that's swimming around, using up, they're jumping, so they're clearly near the surface. Are you catching them, or are they seeing that net and going right on?
You can get nets that are 20, 30 foot deep, you know.
Right, but you may not want to get on the bottom if you don't have. I mean, if you didn't have to, you'd sure be you'd lose a lot fewer nets and.
I think if you dead set at night, you'd probably catch some fish. During the day,
Okay.
gonna go right on. They can see it. Daylight. We always have better luck dead setting at night than what we do during the day. So I would prefer to do it at night when they can't see it. Yeah.
In the Missouri River, when I set gill nets, like trying to block the fish in, if I got a hole that's too deep, my nets won't go deep top to bottom in it. Sometimes I'll set, a bottom net, sinker right next to a floater, and then maybe even a third, net behind that, a sinker, so the fish have got to do this. Even that doesn't work as good as you'd hope. I mean, they find their way through that sucker, and so if you can go top to bottom, and that's the way to go by all means. And and one of the things I don't have any experience with, really, and if you have anoxic water, are they going to penetrate that anoxic water? If you can go down deep enough in these lakes where the water's either really cold or maybe anoxic, are they going to go underneath that and go out? And I cannot answer that question. It's something I've wondered, and I don't know. Do you guys get that?
Some of our lakes, but not where we carp. You think, Reggie, out in the middle, certain times of year in Kentucky Lake.
Yeah, the guys that sit where we are, they do like you say, they set it to us and pull 4 down.
Sure.
And most of their nets go from bottom to top.
Sure. And over the years, I've changed them. Some of them, I have 2 float lines, and the bottom half will be a certain mesh, and the top half will be another mesh. When we first went into the pits, it really worked well with all the blacks in there.
Yeah.
Had 4-inch square on the bottom and 3.5 on the top. It caught really well.